Warm greetings to you today on this second Thursday in this second week of Advent 2020 from First Lutheran Church here in New Richmond, Wisconsin. I'm Pastor Paul Swingen, the interim pastor here at First Lutheran. Our focus today will end up talking about the Trappist monk and a brief word about his life and the conclusion to his life. He was a great peacemaker in this world and lived to the end of his life down at the Trappist monastery of Gethsemane in just south of Louisville, Kentucky, a place that I had a chance to visit some years ago and very much enjoyed that and being in that place at that time. But I want to begin with a brief word from Karl Rahner concerning this second week of Advent. Ask not, he writes, doubt not. You have my heart already chosen the joy of Advent. As a force against your own uncertainty, bravely tell yourself, it is the advent of the great God. Say this with faith and love, and then both the past of your life, which has become holy, and your life's eternal, boundless future will draw together in the now of this world. For then into the heart comes the one who is Advent, the boundless future who is already in the process of coming, the Lord, who has already come into the time of the flesh to redeem it. In our devotion yesterday, we heard from the reading of the second chapter of Isaiah and the imagery of the mountaintop, one of the images of this Advent season. I'd like to offer a brief word from Martin Luther King Jr. He writes, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me because now I've been to the mountaintop and I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to have a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over. And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And I'm happy tonight. All day. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Certainly a positive word about Advent. And then to Thomas Merton, who writes, the Advent mystery is the beginning of the end of all in us that is not yet Christ. The Advent mystery is the beginning of the end of all in us that is not yet Christ. And so we can see where Merton is going with us as he leads us to the Prince of Peace. Monica Furlong writes, as she takes a section from her story of a chapter of Merton's life, referring to a particular event, she says that was on December 4th, but she says on December 10th, after addressing the conference in Bangkok, Thailand, Merton had lunch and did disappear to his room, commenting to a colleague on the way about how much he was looking forward to having a siesta. In a long letter, later written by the delegates at the conference to Dom Flamian, What then occurred was expressed in the following words. Not long after he retired, a shout was heard by others at his cottage, but after a preliminary check, they thought they must have imagined the cry. He was found at the end of the meridian afternoon rest, and when found, was lying on the floor. He was on his back, with the electric fan lying across his chest. The fan was still switched on, and there was a deep burn and some cuts on his right side and arm. The back of his head was also bleeding slightly. Perhaps any death brings with it both a sense of surprise and a sense of its inevitability. There are always those, and there were many after Merton's death, who feel that it somehow had to be like that. Merton had from time to time both spoken and written comments that suggested that his death might come early. Some of his friends commented on the extraordinary, almost Zen-like way that death had come to him. Fewer people than one might expect noted that he died on the same day as the great Protestant theologian Karl Barth. And it was a measure of the ecumenism in Louisville, which Merton had been instrumental in promoting, that Catholics and Protestants there united in a joint memorial service for both of them. I wish I could have been there. Many years before, Naomi Burton had made the suggestion humorously that Merton was accident-prone. I couldn't help noticing that it's your visitors who get locked out of the church, and your server who forgets things, and your vestments that get caught in the folding chair. I find your incredible adventures with nature and with publishing extremely endearing. Perhaps Merton was accident-prone. Perhaps, like many intellectuals, he tended to get lost in his thinking and absent-mindedly forgot about the dangers of touching electrical equipment with wet hands. Perhaps the fan was merely faulty. Perhaps, however, he had finished his life 6 days before at Polonara and was called to the God he had loved and served so very well. And then Robert Weekland concludes, the sermon, he said, I gave at the conference on monasticism on the morning after Merton's death was a moment of talking about Merton's search for God. When a monk enters a monastery, what is asked of him is, are you truly seeking God? The question isn't, have you found God? The question is he seeking God? Is his motivation highly involved in that search of who and what God is in relationship to us? It's not philosophical, it's existential. And Merton, to me, was a great searcher. He was constantly unhappy, as all great searchers are. He was constantly ill at ease. He was constantly restless, as all searchers are. Because that's part of the search. And in that sense, he was the perfect monk. Contemplation isn't satisfaction, it's search. I think that's such an important concept for us in the church today. We talk about the seekers and the searchers, those who are coming to find a congregation that they like. And it isn't as much about the congregation that the congregation needs to present something to them, but it's really, is this a congregation that I've searched for and found and realized that this is a place where I can give my time, my talent, my treasures, my presence? Is that what we're searching for? Or are we trying to find something that's there to meet our needs and to service us? It's like also, of course, today we have a call committee here at First Lutheran Church. I prefer to use the word a search committee, which many denominations use, that we're really searching to seek to find the pastor who we believe will entertain a genuine call from us to come and serve us for Christ's sake. These last words, a poem by Thomas Merton. All of the branches, none of the roots. All of the words, freedom branches. All of the words, happiness branches. all of the words. Equality branches, none of the roots. All of the branches, none of the roots.